Is this thing working? I don't even know if I know how to use this anymore. It's been so long, but I'm gonna try to get some work done on the car this week. And truck is still down, haven't really done anything with it. I haven't really done anything with the car either. It's probably been like 2 months, I think now, since I worked on the alternator bracket, and really haven't touched this at all. Been working on some other house projects and greenhouse project, and all my time and money has been going into that stuff. So I have some time off of work this week, so I'd like to start working on this guy again, getting the drive shaft made. I want to get the drive shaft spec'd out and then made this week, and I'd like to probably get the clutch and stuff on all that in there, because right now I just had it mocked up. I didn't put the clutch and everything in, so I'd like to get that all figured out so the driveline is done, and then it would just be fuel system and wiring. Did in one of the last videos go through and do the plate for the fuel tank, but never finalized that. At the time I was waiting on this hose and then just never got to it. But before we get to this, I would like to give a greenhouse update. I know there's some guys that are interested in the greenhouse updates, so I'll do that quick and show you guys what I've been working on and where a lot of my time and money has been going lately. I'd encourage you to check that out and see what I've been working on. And if you're not interested in that at all, I'll put a timestamp in where you can skip to the next part of the video. Because it's Blazer builds, right? And it's Blazer, it's something that I built. So one of the main things we got done recently is the heating and cooling. So this little intake vent is for the heater, and then these are two 36 by 36 shutters for the cooling intake. And we just have the double door here. And the inside of the greenhouse. So everything that's in here now is just what my wife's getting ready for our sale. We do a big plant sale every year. So she's working on getting this stuff potted up. And we're still under construction in here, so there's a lot of wood and tools and everything laying around. Wife's just mixing up some dirt, and you can hear that the cooling system just shut off, so those fans are going to come to a stop and the shutters will shut. But my wife's mixing up some dirt here. She just uses this concrete mixer and then mixes up all the dirt. So there's 3 fans. Those are exhaust fans, and then the small fan is for the air exchange when the heater runs. And then I just have the conduit that runs all the way across here and goes to the other side. So that conduit just runs up to an outlet here, and that's what powers on all the fans. Each one of these fans has a pull cord on it, and it's 3-speed adjustable. And there's one other outlet I ran over to the floor level over on this side. So that outlet was down over there. There's an outlet here, and an outlet up front. And I just ran 3/4 inch conduit to that box, and then 1 inch conduit all the way back up through this corner and then back over through here. So all of the shutter motors are tied into that conduit. We have the intake motor for the heater, and then all the other wiring comes over for the heater. The heater is a LB White Thermogirl 120 Plus. It's a 120,000 BTU heater. And there you can actually see the intake shutters just opened up because it's cooling itself back down. So those will run for a little bit until it gets down to its target temp, and then they'll shut again. Everything is controlled by these 2 thermostats over here. So we have a heating thermostat and then a cooling thermostat. And my wife has it set to about 60, probably 64 degrees right now. And we basically keep the heating and the cooling thermostats about the same temperature. The heating will, when it's set at 70, it'll drop down to about 62 and heat up to 70 and shut off. And then the cooling thermostat runs the opposite way, where if it's set at 64, it'll heat up to about 70 likely, and then come back down to its target temp, and then shut everything off. So we've had this running kind of continuously by itself now for about 3 or 4 weeks, and it just heats at night if it needs to, and then cools during the day. When the sun is beating, it gets pretty hot in here. So these fans will just like cycle on and off and then regulate the temp, and it'll stay within about 8 degrees of target temp all day long. So, and then on the heating thermostat, this heater is a 2-stage heater, so I added in like a winter summer switch on here. It just tied it into the 2nd stage for the gas valve, and when it's off it'll run at 65,000 BTU. If it's on, it'll run at 120,000 BTU. So we really don't need that during the spring nights or summer nights, so we just leave that off for now. And then that just comes and runs all the way over to here. So then I just have a 3/4 inch gas line that runs back here with a shutoff valve there. That comes from the supply from the house, and then the box is 125 amp service out here, and then I just have the 4 GFCI breakers in here These are what run the heater and the outlets and stuff right now, and then these are just not used at this point. Alright, now it just hit temp and those shut off. So now those just close, and then as it sits and warms up a little bit in here, it gets closer to target temp, and then they'll open up again. So we have the floor all covered because we're not doing any like planting in the ground. There's going to be no soil in here at all when it's running at its final state. This is going to be an aquaponics greenhouse, so we're going to grow everything with just fish and water, and we're not going to have any dirt. So that's why we have the floor all covered, and then we're going to fill everything with pea gravel on the bottom. But that's why I put the outlet over on the bottom over there, because that's going to run some of our return pumps and aerators for the water, and I still have to tie in some other electrical that's going to go on this side to run some of the other pumps for like the water cooled lights and stuff that we're going to have in here. So still a lot to do, but that's kind of where it's at now. One of the things we do want to do yet is remove some of this plastic up here, because when the heater runs it kind of blows really into this area and then it swings it all down. So this first room gets really warm and then the other side doesn't get as warm, so it stays about 10 to 15 degrees cooler on the other side. Technically this is two separate structures, and it's built this way because that's what we had to do for the ordinance, because they said that we couldn't build one 20 by 44 greenhouse, but we could build two 20 by 20s, and then we could connect them in the middle. So just dumb ordinance rule, but basically it's set up for this to be split and this section to be removed, so we can show that it's actually two separate greenhouses to follow the ordinance. So kind of dumb, but that's what we had to do. And now those just kicked on again. Each one of those fans on the high speed is about 3,950 CFM, so almost 4,000 a piece. So we got a nice little breeze actually when those are running and then the shutters are open. You can actually feel some nice movement around here. Alrighty boys, so here's what I got. I got the clutch master cylinder, transmission yoke, the differential side yoke. I got to get the seal for that yet. I don't think I put that on yet. And I just have some wiring stuff. I have some coil packs. These are like Audi coils, and I'm going to be using the Canformance brackets to put those coils in. So I have some wiring stuff for that, and then all of this is new plugs for the wire harness. So I do have the Max ECU Sport also. So I think my mission is going to be get the driveline stuff figured out, get the engine back in, make sure the clutch and all that is working, and then move on to probably wiring. I think it'd be a good idea to get the fuel system stuff figured out, maybe even before the wiring, get all that dialed in. I do have all the hoses and everything, so I think I'm just going to lay this all out and try to develop a plan here. Because it's been a while, so I basically lost all of my momentum and kind of starting fresh. Alright, so I got the rear yoke on. You can see rear yoke is on there, and then I do have the slip yoke in there. This is the slip yoke that I got from Fabbot when I bought all the parts for the kit to do this. This is the CD truck transmission output shaft to a 1350 U-joint, and the rear is a 1350 strange yoke. So I'm going to measure center to center on the U-joints, and then this flat edge on the front of the yoke is pretty much the middle, and you can see I do already have the measurement on my hands because I did this already, but I'm going to come over here and measure to the center of where the U-joint would be, and it's 45.5. And I did just make sure that the joints were all at the same angle so I don't have any stretch. And I also have the weight of the car on the suspension right now, and the rear is jacked up by the differential. So what I'll do now is I'll run the U-joints and the specs to the place that I have my drive shafts done at. And these are the U-joints I always go with. They're the Spicer non-greasable 1350 U-joints. And I just always go with those. I like them. They're non-greasable, so they don't have the grease joint through the middle, because I've heard that those tend to be a little weaker because they have that grease channel in them. I've never broken one, but it makes sense. Like this one here, for example, this has this greaser channel in it, so it has a channel and holes all the way through it to lubricate the ends. So I feel like that's a little bit weaker. And what I do is I bring them the U-joints and the slip yoke, and they put it all together for me. And this is the yoke that's on the rear, the Strange U1630, just a 488 1350 joint. And I'm sure the drive shaft shop has these if I wanted to just tell them to do that, but for some reason I'm more comfortable just buying it and bringing it to them. And this is a unique piece that's from Fabbot because it has the Nissan Frontier CD truck spline with a 1350 joint on the end. So that's a custom piece, so I'll bring them that and all of this stuff, and I tell them my length, and then they'll probably call me sometime tomorrow. Honestly, they're really fast usually. Today's Wednesday, they'll probably have it to me tomorrow, or I would guess early morning on Friday. Alright, so I got the ring off there. I went around the inside with a flap wheel, cleaned everything up, made sure everything was flush. Now I'm going to put the ring in the oven and then come out here and set it down here. So I'll probably put it 350 in the oven for a little while, and then I have the flywheel actually propped up off the ground on a piece of tube so I don't burn my floor, and we'll see how that goes. I got some gloves. I'm gonna run in and grab the thing out of the oven. It's been about probably 25 minutes, and we'll see how that goes on, if it goes on. Oh, there we go. She's on, baby. Alright, so it's a little bit later the next night now. I do have the shaft made. They called me at 1:30 p.m. today, and I left there at 3:30 p.m. yesterday. So I got the engine back out and transmission separated. I got the flywheel on, all bolted up. I have the pilot bearing in, and I was starting to mock all this up and realized I don't have the shoulder bolts that I need to mount this thing. So I ordered some of those from Amazon, but the problem there is it says it's not going to be here till Sunday, and today is Thursday. I did find a place on eBay that's 10 miles from here, and I bought those, so hopefully they'll let me do pickup in the morning, local pickup, and then if not, I have a spare set, or I'll cancel the Amazon order or something. While everything's out, I did a little bit of painting, and it's funny because I was starting to mask all this stuff off right here. I did the kind of cream colored paint. My son, my 8-year-old, was out here while I was masking all this stuff off, and he comes up with 2 cans of paint. I was going to do black, and he comes up with this color and another color that I forgot I even had this. He dug it out of my bin, and I think we used this for painting some stakes or some cattle panels or something for the garden, and it was just in the back of my bin. And he comes up and says, what color are we using? Which one of these are we using? Like, well, I'm going to do black. And then I thought about it and sprayed a test piece, and it actually comes out pretty good, and I didn't have to worry as much about a little bit of overspray, I guess. I did these parts here where I welded in this tab for the radiator mount, and that worked out pretty good. So I'll still go back through and then do the rest of it, this piece with black, and I think that'll look pretty good. I also did the transmission mount in like some hammered black. I like that hammered paint. That stuff turns out pretty good. And this piece, for those that didn't see it, is factory crossmember piece, and I just chopped the middle section out of it and then used some square tubing and made a little flange for the trans to mount. So while I'm waiting for those bolts to come, I'll probably pop the bell housing off and try to get the slave cylinder and all that stuff set up. It does have these little channels for the hoses to pass through, so I'll have to pull this thing off. So there's a channel down here and a channel up here for the lines to come through. And then if I'm really stuck waiting on those bolts, I might start to do the fuel tank and all that jazz just while I have the engine out. I won't be able to completely run the line, but I should be able to at least get the hose ran up to the front. And then at some point I'll do the valve cover. I thought about popping the valve cover off to do the painting quick, but lifting this thing in and out, it kind of scratches this up. So I also haven't done the oil pickup tube yet. I built the oil pan a while back, but I haven't made the pickup tube. So I have the extended pan here, and I have a OEM tube that I think I'm going to have to extend that. Well, I know I'm going to have to extend it, but I haven't done that yet, so that's also something I can do probably while the engine is out. Alright, so I'm going to put the clutch and pressure plate on now. I got these bolts. This is off the 4200 Wiki, the ARP 130-2201. They're the shoulder bolt style bolt, so you're not using the dowel pin on the pressure plate. The shoulder bolt will align it. I ordered these on Amazon and they came a day early, so I'm excited about that. So let's get this thing on. Alright, so I'm just going ahead and putting some of the clutch lube on the splines inside here. I did put some on the transmission side already. I'll go ahead and wipe down all that extra stuff that was hanging off just so that doesn't spray around. There was quite a bit left over. Make sure my alignment tool fits. Alright, so I got the clutch and everything all bolted up, and I did take a measurement for the air gap for the slave cylinder, and I came out with basically 1/8 of an inch. I measured it first with the bell housing on the transmission, so I measured from the block to the fingers, and then I measured from the bell housing to the slave. So now, because I have to take the bell housing off anyways to run the lines in the grooves here, I'm going to do the measurement this way with the bell housing on the transmission, and then just compare the numbers and make sure it's good. So right now I just have the slave cylinder with the spring off of it and recessed all the way back. I have this bolted on, and then I'll do my measurements. Alright, so I already did the measurement, and I came up with 124 thousandths versus 120 on the first measurement. So how I did this one was I measured the thickness of this plate and then zeroed it, and then I measured to the finger, and then zeroing that plate accounts for the thickness of the plate here. So I got 3.509 on that one. I actually got 3.508 on the first time I measured it, so that was pretty close there. And then over here just did the same thing with the spring off of the slave cylinder, and then took the measurement from here to the mounting surface of the bell housing to the transmission, 3.369, which I'm actually going to measure that one more time, just because I got a little different measurement the other time I did it. .37. So if that one was 3.37 is 0.138, which is actually closer to what the manufacturer recommends. They recommend like 0.15. So I'm going to leave it how it is with, it shouldn't need a shim. It actually needs a little bit more of a gap, but I'm going to leave it how it is. And just for reference, it's just the Fabbot CD to 4L60 bell housing adapter, and I'm using a Colorado bell housing because it bolts right to the 4200. I'm using the spacer that the Fabbot Kit came with, and no other shims. It's a small block pressure plate with a 10.5 inch clutch with the Nissan spline. So all this stuff I got directly from Fabbot. Alright, so I got the engine and transmission bolted all back together, so that should be done for the final assembly. I did just make a temporary little shifter here. I was going to start working on throwing it back in, but I think I'm going to wait because I have a couple things I want to do yet. I biffed the threads on the mounts when I pulled it out, so I want to get a die and actually fix the threads on those. I think the mount section turned out pretty good with the paint. I think that looks pretty nice. I also want to figure out something for the power steering supply line because this has a banjo that comes out with a pretty stiff line that comes straight up, and that's not going to work because it's got to come over to the passenger side. And I also have to figure out something for the steering shaft. I might have enough of the spline in here that I could extend it out, but because I raised the K-member up, or I raised it up off the K-member, it now doesn't fit there. So I want to get that figured out before I put the engine back in there. So I think that makes sense to do all that stuff before I put the engine in, and I have to work around it. I also have to figure out something for these brackets because K-member is spaced down. So I put these 2-inch lift blocks in here. This engine is really tall, so I needed to space that thing out so I could clear. But other than that, all the driveline stuff should be done. I have the drive shaft, that should all be good when I bolt it in there. I just have to figure out if the shifter placement is going to be right. I know it's close, so I'll be able to figure that out. So yeah, I guess not too much of an update for how long it's been since I made a video, but I got, I think, a lot of important stuff done and a better understanding of what I need to do going forward. Hopefully I'll have a little more time in the near future to continue to work on this thing, but after that, once it's in its final resting place, it'll just be able to go in and stay in most likely, and then I'll be able to start working on, it's really just like fuel lines, wiring for the big projects, but you know how that goes.